Ready when you are, sir.
Could I have everybody's attention, please? I'd like to call this LUB meeting to order for February the 24th, 2020. I'd like to recognize any visitors we might have. Anybody have anything? We have anybody sign up on that
I
sheet?
did not see anyone sign up unless they did after I left the table.
Anybody have anything they'd like to say before we get cranked up? If not, I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the minutes from the January 27th meeting and they appear accurate.
Okay, thank you. Need a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item is the financial report.
Nicole Curtis is coming to present a review of what was gone over at the workshop in a summary format, a new format that we like. It's a dashboard for each department.
We're working on this as, before I begin, are there any specific items that you would like to see addressed? We were able to produce these reports at the February workshop, so hopefully you've had a little bit more time to review them. If not, I will go on into the summary. Overall, we are on track to meet our budgeted revenues. This is the electric department summary for December. You see this December 2019 compared to December, the same month of 2018, as well as our year-to-date totals for those years. I will state that the net income here, we have some things in January that will impact that, but overall, our electric department is in good shape in terms of our budgeted numbers. Our revenues are lower. That is due to some industrial consumption being lower in the month of December. But the offset to that is that our cost of TVA was lower. So I've also included on there some snippets from the TVA report that show the customer count and where our revenue comes from. You can go back. You can see that for this year, our current customers are 12,539 in the electric department, and that's up slightly from 12,270 customers the same month last year. And the other quadrant there shows how our revenue is broken out. A total of $3.97 million in the month of December. When you break it down, over 50% of that comes from one particular customer class, and that gives you an idea of how important our industrial and large commercial customers are to the electric department. You can go ahead, I have a trend line of consumption. We have sales data that's available back to July of 2017, and this just shows how it ebbs and flows over each month. You will see that November and December are much lower than past years. Again, our cost of TVA is lower as well. There were a few specific items while we're on electric I wanted to just mention again. We talked at the workshop about depreciation expense. With the upcoming budget cycle, depreciation expense will be up next year. And I mentioned already the overhead line expense. We can go ahead to, is it gas that's next?
Yes.
Gas is, as you've heard me say before, we're dependent on the weather patterns here. Again, the chart there shows the consumption since January 2017 to 2020. The good news here is it's not, it's lower than previous years, but it's still okay. And we have taken steps to bring other forms of income that are not as dependent on weather into the gas department. With the transportation rate, interest revenues are up, so there's some stability there. Again, are there any specific questions here? With the electric and the gas department, our consumption is dependent on the weather, and our cost is as well to TVA and our gas wholesaler. Moving ahead to the water department. Again, revenues, expenditures on track with the budgeted amounts. Consumption is flat. There's no growth here. The concern is, as we continue year over year, you see a growth in our operating expenses and our costs. So if our rate structure, Our consumption is not growing. Our rate structure is the same as it has been for 3 years. In order to fund ongoing increased operational costs and capital improvements, we're going to have to look at rate increases in the upcoming year. Fortunately, we have the cost of services study to help guide that decision. Moving into the sewer department, net income for December, $142,000 compared to last year, $113,000. Again, everything is, there's not much new to say here, similar to last year, and we are on track for the budget. Revenues are flat. What's good about the sewer department is we do not have as heavy of capital investments planned there as we did on the water department. So all in all, on track to meet our fiscal year 2020 budget. That's it as far as the numbers. I'm happy to inform you that our annual audit was completed last week, and you will be receiving that report next month for review. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Could you take and add the cost to the trend line in parallel to the consumption and usage that we have on each chart, each category?
What would you would like to see?
Add the trend line for the cost,
Operating costs?
operating costs.
Yes, certainly.
Well, we can see a comparison over a period of years instead of just the month and year to date.
We're excited to be able to.
It'd be nice, yeah, it'd be nice to see if those lines parallel each other.
You know, we've always looked at the numbers, but there's so much that goes into that. There's so many factors with weather and operations, how many customers are we serving, so happy to make that
But you
change.
can certainly see that in the weather months.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, we need a motion, please.
I'll make the motion. Second.
Have a motion and a second on financial reports. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Action items. First on the agenda is the assurance of adequate funding level of self-funded health benefit plan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Notice the words we're using to describe this year, very different. We're not calling it insurance renewal. That's not an accurate description. I think it takes us into complacency to just say we're going to do the same thing over and over again. As we discussed at great length last year, and we're continuing to discuss this year in small groups. The problem is the funding of the plan, the amount of dollars that go into the ketchup bottle, so to speak. And we are recommending an increase in the amount of dollars that go into the medical fund. You can see here a tracking over the past 4 years. You can see a slight increase like last year, and an even greater increase this year. That's to ensure adequate funding at the level of the plan's benefit going forward, at least into next year. There is a budgetary impact to that. It will require a budget amendment this year for the utility in the amount of $131,440. March 1st is renewal with Humana. That's the only trigger in the calendar, but because we want the funding level to correspond to the amount of the available benefit, we will seek a budget amendment from you in the amount shown on the screen.
Do you have any questions? So we're leaving the insurance as is.
As I've communicated with many of our employees, we're leaving it as was.
So we won't be making any changes on it.
No, sir, not this time. We would like to, we'd like for this body as well as the city council to entertain the idea of forming a study committee going forward for at least this year, though it may be a good idea to have a standing committee to consider these issues on an ongoing basis. I'd recommend representation from this board, as well as from the city council, and representation from the ranks of employees, as well as members of the community, perhaps a ratepayer, as well as a city of Loudon resident.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I really do. Do they have any questions? We need a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we continue with our current plan.
Second.
Have a motion and second to adequately fund the self-funded health benefit plan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Ty. Next item on the agenda is the authorization of contract feeder circuit right-of-way clearing services related work with Brewster Service Group.
Yes, discussed at the workshop. The next two items on the agenda are both contract awards to Brewster Service Group, a local contractor who was indeed the low bidder on both these bid amounts. And I think what's important going forward is disclosure of the billing method based on the contract that is before you for approval today. We're offering you a preview of that. You'll see on the screen an example of both circuit billing as well as hotspot billing, which is based upon the maps provided by engineering and specific work orders that are requested by engineering for hotspots as they are found. But these are the two formats. First is circuit right-of-way clearing. You can see an example here. It was bid by the mile. So this example bill shows 30 miles and the billing amounts associated with it. Again, this is a sample. Next is a sample hotspot bill based on specific locations that are in a work order design and which Brewster Service Group will follow and then bill accordingly.
But would you have hotspot every day? Would you work hotspots every day?
I think you're directing the question the wrong way. The hotspot budget is something that we put together, and it's a work order system that's run out of the electric department. And so essentially there's a purchase order and then work and invoicing that follows.
Gotcha. Sorry.
Do you have any questions? We need a motion, please.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second on the feeder circuit right-of-way clearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item is authorizing contract for mowing services and related work with Brewster Service Group.
Yeah, the previous contract was the high work, this is the low work. And again, Brewster Service Group was the low bidder on this as well. It is bid by department based on the facilities and the ownership and how they're utilized. And you can see here an example of the 4 utility departments: gas, water, sewer, and electric, various real estate assets. And here's an example of a bill to one of those departments based on a map location. Again, I want to thank Brewster Service Group for generating these sample bills based on the new contract format. I think they'll be incredibly helpful going forward.
Great. Do you have any questions? Need a motion, please.
Move to approve the auditor's report.
Second.
Have a motion and second to approve the contract for mowing services. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next item is authorization to purchase 2 2020 Ford F4 single axle dump trucks. And that's for the gas department.
Yes, it is for the gas department, it's replacing two old trucks from the early 90s.
Any more discussion on it? Everybody?
I don't think so.
Uh,
We're 20 plus years old.
It's time, maybe,
Yeah.
you leave.
Make a motion, we move on by. Second.
Have a motion and second, to purchase the two trucks. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next item is authorizing a 1991 Chevy 2500s, considered for surplus.
Yes, sir, just clearing up the balance sheet and surplusing an old piece of equipment, seeking your permission to place it on Gov Deals.
Make a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, to surplus the Chevrolet 2500. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Establishing natural gas rates for March.
Yeah, the market did decrease from 0.01637 to 0.01627. I'm sorry, $2.29. I would skip forward to electric per decatherm to $2.10 per decatherm. Converts to a rate of $1.01 per 100 cubic feet of gas billed after March 1.
That's been dropping a little all year, hasn't it? Down to $1.01. Okay. Need a motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second, establish natural gas rates for 2020. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? On the other, we have the Tennessee Valley Authority fuel cost adjustment.
As reported by TVA, the fuel cost adjustment did decrease, resulting in a 10-cent decrease for each 1,000 kilowatt hours of residential customer use.
You have anything else for us?
No, appreciate the attendance today, and are always welcome, and pretty straightforward meeting today.
Great. Yeah, you're right down the line today. Tim, do you have anything for us?
Good.
Art?
No, sir.
Gene?
Now, just a comment on financials, I really appreciate the hard work being done with that. It's really making it simple to be able to view it, make based decisions that see where we're going. Thank you, Carl, and everyone else for coming back.
Well, thank you, Cole, and you, over the past 2 years, you have invested in this department in terms of its leadership and its personnel and staffing, and this is the result of that.
Gary? Bart, you have?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. This meeting is adjourned.
What's going on?